What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 191, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we're talking all about them nasty Xbox Game Pass price hikes. We also have Modern Warfare 3 potentially coming to Game Pass. And did Hellblade 2 flop? All that and more. But before we get to it, gotta introduce my co-host back from Southeast Game Expo, JamPackSam. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I'm doing very well. I'm excited to be on this show. Obviously, we've got a packed discussion because it's been a very wild week in the world of Xbox. But yeah, coming off of a big weekend, had some cool pickups, and yeah, happy to be back.
Yeah, I watched your pickup video, which I liked. I liked the format.
Thanks.
All right, and just letting you know. I know I commented in the video, but also pleased with your pickups. Crash 4, always a
Yeah.
great time. Was a little sad, no Kung Fu Chaos. Did they just not have it, or what's the situation there?
So like it was such a chaotic couple of hours because we just went down for the second day. I just couldn't take the time to dig, but no, it was a great time. Anybody that's out there that enjoys collecting and digging through giant bins of games, Southeast Game Exchange, it's always a good time. I did want to share one that I did not have in the pickup video because I actually ordered it at home after because I couldn't find it. I got a Japanese Gears of War 2.
Ooh.
And so I needed this because I found a limited edition Japanese Gears of War last year and it did not have the disc. So I got this for $5 on eBay and it's like minty condition. So that was my cool pickup of the week.
That is cool. I my Play Asia orders came in, so I have the Japanese Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion 2 behind me, and Japanese box art just looks way cooler.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, even just looking at this, like there's nothing super special about this. And for audio listeners, I'm holding it up to the camera, but it's like just the lettering and then like the back looks cool. All of the manuals and like DLC stuff is in Japanese as well. I just love the way it looks. So happy to have it. It's great.
Ghostly Guides asks, Kung Fu Chaos. That's Ninja Theory's very first game on the OG Xbox, and it's been a long running thing. I want Sam to get it, and we can talk about it because
maybe next year. Maybe next year.
But we got lots of Xbox news to dive into. Before we get to that, let's do some housekeeping. This is Project X Talk. We are live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/Save the Game Media. If it can't catch us live, we post every Friday morning on your favorite audio platform of choice. While you're over there, make sure to drop us that 5-star review. It does help us in those algorithms. If you want to support us even further, get early audio access to all Save the Game Media content and exclusive bonus content, head over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Lindsay, Nikolai at Night, Cypher Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Alpaca Tom, Lee Navarro, Silknit, and Ellery Woods Parker the third. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. Sam, let's dive right into what have you been playing, because I got to get to the news. But I see a whole bunch of games that you've been diving into this week.
I don't know what happened. It's like life was really busy, and then I hit last week, and it's like, oh, I have like 30 hours of free time, even going out of town. So I won't take a ton of time because I've talked about a couple of these.
Take the time you need. All right.
Okay, cool. 20 minutes coming up. But I finished Lords of the Fallen. I'd give like a 7 out of 10. I rolled credits on it. Okay. Like I said last week, it's kind of artificially hard because of the way the characters, or I should say the way the enemies just kind of like bombard you at certain points. And then it's got some performance issues, but all in all, it's a fun Souls. Like I enjoyed my time with it. And I'll be bringing it up once again on the Game Pass discussion here in a couple of minutes as well. But after I rolled credits on that, I rolled right into Doom Eternal. I went back to play the Ancient Gods 1 and 2. Have you played these DLCs at all?
No, I beat Doom Eternal, and then I sat it down and never have thought about it again. And the problem with DLC is it always comes out so late. Like they released the DLC, like I've been long done with that game, and you were expecting me to like go drop what I'm playing now to go back to a game that I have to relearn how to play, and like it's just a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I got these. It's always been on my playlist. Like it's been in the back of my mind. But this was on sale. I think I got both of them for $11 with tax included. So it was like $10 for 2 big DLCs. And I think I put they're about 3 to 4 hours a piece. So like 8 hours of DLC here. And Doom Eternal is one of those games where they designed it so well for controller. Like, I'm sure it plays great on PC. I haven't played it on PC, but it's such a like ripping and tearing rhythm game almost, where you get into a flow of like, okay, I need more health, so I need to freeze these guys with the freeze grenade and then get some health out of that. I need some more armor, so I need to catch them on fire and then load them up with the minigun. It's like you have like this rhythm algorithm thing in your mind that you kind of run through when you play. And so it's just super action packed. The bosses are fun. It's not super difficult or anything, but I had a really good time with it. So if anybody out there enjoys Doom Eternal, like I said, 3 to 4 hours a piece, you can't really beat it, especially if you grab it on sale for like $10.
That's awesome. I'm excited for the new Doom. I can't say like, is it story? First of all, who pays attention to the story in Doom? You know what I'm saying? Like,
True.
I'm just here to blast things. All right. I think there was something like there's a base on Mars, and I don't know what's going on in there. But like, is it very story heavy, or is it literally just like go here, shoot more enemies?
I mean, there is a good like layer of story there, and I won't spoil it for anybody, but it is enjoyable. It definitely is not going to get super deep into the lore. I do want to go back to Lords of the Fallen for Silking It in the chat right now, asking about the final boss. We can talk about it a little bit more in depth outside of this, maybe in a Discord or something. But the last boss in Lords of the Fallen, a little cheesy, little fake. It's kind of weird, but I didn't hate it, also didn't love it, much like the entire game overall.
On a scale of 1 to Remnant 2 final boss BS, where are we falling?
Oh no, I mean in terms of difficulty, it's not like difficult. It's just kind of
Okay.
like there's one boss and then you go back to another boss to actually finish the game, and the final boss is more so like do stuff really quickly in a small amount of time before you basically just get killed. So it's kind of like a time trial almost, and it's dumb.
I don't like that.
Yeah, no, but the last 3 things I played are kind of like quick succession because I played like 1 or 2 hours a piece of these. The first Descendant, the new free-to-play game that came out, kind of like Warframe in a way. Fun shooter, mindless kind of game. Battlefield 2042 has a Dead Space mode that's not really a Dead Space mode, but like it's Battlefield. I like Battlefield, so I went back to it. And the newest thing that I am going to finally like get into and finish all the way through, my next big play, is Dead Island 2. So I started that last night, like 30 minutes in, and another Game Pass game that's been on the list. So that's what I've been up to.
So I wanna touch on the first Descendant
Yeah.
before we move on, because I've seen a lot of chatter about this game online. I've seen people coming to its defense saying, "Nah, it's a lot of fun." I've seen other people saying, "No, it's super grindy. It's the very egregious microtransaction free to play model." Um, I've also seen that they just ripped off Destiny 2 icons, like straight up just just stole them in the game. But I was on Todd Oxtra's podcast, and Mark the Canardian.
That's good.
Their show over at at Secret Friends Unite. I was on co-op mode. If you can go check them out, show them guys a lot of support and love over there. It was a great time. But on that show, Todd Oxtra mentioned how the first Descendant was Zack Snyder's Destiny 2, and I was like, that actually fits from what I've seen with this game.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. I mean, I have probably played maybe 2 hours, like really sat down and played 2 hours of it. I haven't felt pushed to like buy anything. I know that I made a video talking about the microtransactions because it was a big topic of conversation when things launched. But I said in the video, like, I don't feel like I'm getting pushed to actually buy anything. But if you're a whale, you can spend hundreds of dollars and get tons of stuff. But it is a very grindy game. However, that kind of lends itself to the type of person that's probably playing this game. Like they would want to have that grind. They would want to play hundreds of hours to unlock all the things in the game. So I don't think it's egregious or anything, but it is definitely high octane action Destiny 2. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not one I'm gonna pick up. It just looks very generic to me. Like there's nothing drawing me to that game, you know?
Yeah, the shooting, I will say for anybody that like enjoys third person shooters, the shooting is very tight. Like it feels really good. I've had a really good time with it so far, and I'll probably play more, but I agree. There's like, there's this level of generic around it where if it wasn't free to play, I definitely wouldn't be buying it. But since it is free to play, it might be something I like throw on the back burner. I still have it installed, so that's more than most free to play games after 2 hours on my console. That's where I'll say.
Oh, well, awesome, man. I'm good eclectic group of games you got here. I'm excited to hear more about Dead Island 2 when you get in.
Yeah.
That's always one that's like when there's a lull in games, I do want to like try it because I've heard it's just like a fun, mindless game to throw on.
Yeah, that's one that's been installed since it dropped, and then it's just kind of been sitting there waiting. And I was in the in between, and I was like, do I want to go back to my live service games, or do I want to continue this trend of like actually doing the backlog thing and getting through my backlog? So I'm sticking with the backlog. But what have you been playing? I know you kind of alluded to one last week that you couldn't talk about that I see on the list here now.
Yeah, I can talk about this now. My review is officially out. It dropped Tuesday, and that is Lifeless Moon. So I was provided a review code for this game. It has been out on Steam for around a year. This is the console port that I was able to review. I reviewed on Xbox Series X. And the best way I can describe this game is classic sci-fi tropes meets like walking puzzle simulator game.
Okay.
And if you're into those styles of games, this is a very good one, I think. Because when I booted, like when you watch the trailer, I don't know who's cutting their trailers for marketing. The trailers are horrible. They do a terrible job at telling you what this game is because it just shows you walking along on a moon, jumping, and it's like, is this what the game is? Just exploring like a empty rock? No, it's not what the game is. You do that for about 5 minutes and then like a mystery unfolds. Like you find a town on the moon and you're like, what's going on? You start uncovering documents that it's like, oh, we're gonna have to get power supply to the town on the moon, and like weird things start happening, like anomalies. I won't spoil the whole thing, but it's really cool. Like the mystery you start uncovering has some sci-fi elements into it, as I mentioned, like time and singularities going on. But it's very short. I beat it around 2.5 to 3 hours, so it doesn't
Oh.
overstay its welcome. I think it's like $12, so it is a very cheap indie game. It's not going to push any graphical fidelity, but if you're looking for like a fun, interesting puzzle game, I think this one is one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, I've been watching some of the gameplay ever since we were talking about it kind of behind the scenes last week, and it's one that I'm like marginally interested in. It might be like a pick it up on a sale kind of thing. There's
Mhm.
just something about it. Like, again, we all know this is an indie game. Like, it is a very small indie game, but I look at it and I'm like, ooh, this looks like templated Unreal Engine 5 running, and like there's like this certain level of jank to it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any less of a good experience or a good game. So, yeah, I might add this to the wish list. Pick it up at some point.
Yeah, it is a Unity game, which explains the jank you're
Ah,
seeing. All right,
yeah.
it's if you're wondering. But Silken in the chat says Lifeless Moon. Similar games in Steam for me are 1000X Resist and Talos Principle 2, so it's a buy for me. I haven't played either of those games. I've heard really good things, but I do think that like Silken it, just knowing the kind of games like you've chatted to me about, I do think this one is up your alley.
Interesting. Yeah, it looks like there was another game called Lifeless Planet that was the original game. So this is the
Mm.
second one.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. I didn't know that. This was I saw the description said sci-fi and 3D platformer. So I went into this with completely different expectations. Like there are platforming sections, but this was not at all what I was expecting it to be. It kind of gets like horror vibe. Like if you've seen Alien, the movie, like it
Yeah.
kind of has that tone at certain points.
Interesting. Yeah, the trailer is really neat to watch. If anybody is wanting to kind of check it out, there's a new launch trailer up on the Xbox YouTube channel as of 2 hours ago. So it's like super fresh out of the gate. But yeah, cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Very nice to see these smaller games kind of get some spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the last thing, which I won't take too much time, is The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak.
Hey,
It's finally out. It came out last Friday, and it's basically been all I've been playing since then. I have put 25 hours into it, I believe, so far, and I am on the final chapter. If anyone knows me, that's right around where I tend to hang for these types of games. Other people, I'm not going to name any names, Savoy Prime over Carpool Gaming. He puts more 100 to 200 hours in these games, but
jeez.
he straight up told me he talks to every NPC in town after every mission just to see like if their dialogue has changed for the world building. And I was like, that's psychotic behavior. If they don't have a quest marker, they're window dressing to me. All right.
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, that's the cool thing about some of these games is you can get as into it as you want. You can really dive in, spend time with it. But yeah, so you said 25 hours and you're coming up on the end. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah, I'm in the
Yeah.
final chapter. I really do. I like it a lot. There was one chapter where I was like, this is a little not hitting, but every other chapter in the game has been phenomenal. This might be up there for one of the best Trails games. Like, there's 13 of them now, and not counting the ones that are only in Japan. So like,
Wow.
that's very high praise. I'm absolutely loving it. So I will
Very cool.
probably do a review for it on the channel for anyone interested. So stay tuned for that. But that's all I've been playing this week. I'll roll credits on that, and then I got a bunch of Game Pass games waiting for me next week. We got Neon
Nice.
White, Flintlock, Dungeon. They're all loaded up, ready to go.
Yeah, well, you've got to get your value out of it because it's getting even more expensive, which is a great segue into the first real topic of the show.
It is a great segue. So, story number one: Xbox Game Pass has raised its prices. What we all knew was coming, and I spelled "new" wrong in the document here. That's embarrassing. What we all knew was coming has finally
They
been
didn't need to know,
confirmed.
Kevin.
I
They
knew.
didn't know.
I knew. What we all knew is coming has finally been confirmed. Xbox has announced it is raising the price of Xbox Game Pass again, with the new prices going into effect immediately for new subscribers and September 12th for current subscribers. So here's what you need to know and how it affects each tier. And don't worry, after I read all this, I will put a nice little graphic. You know what? Let me get the graphic now. Actually,
Get the
that might
graphic
be
up.
helpful as we're going through this. There we go. So I will share that for our YouTube watchers. So, can I bring up the document without? Yes. Okay. Xbox Game Pass console is being shuttered for new users, while current subscribers will be allowed to maintain their current subscription. However, users will only be able to stack up to 13 months of this tier with prepaid cards. Xbox Game Pass Standard is a new tier replacing Xbox Game Pass Console in September. This tier will cost you $14.99 per month, including online and the Game Pass catalog, but no day one games or PC and cloud. Xbox reportedly told Jez Corden at Windows Central that those games would appear 6 to 12 months after launch, but it's a case by case basis, with their own support page stating they may come in the future. PC Game Pass will increase its price to $11.99 per month. Xbox Game Pass Core has increased its price to $74.99 annually. And Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, the most popular tier, will increase from $16.99 to $19.99 per month. Sam, I need you to go first, all right? Because I got a lot of we got a lot of questions. People have written in about this, but I gotta know your reaction to the price hike.
So my reaction to the price hike is kind of what you let off with. It's not like this is something that is coming out of left field where, oh, why would we need to increase the price? Brother, we got Call of Duty coming in this year. Like, we've got some big hitters that are on the way with Indiana Jones, Avowed. There's a new Gears on the way. All of these things are going to be in Game Pass on day one. And it just seemed kind of inevitable that at one point or another, we were going to be seeing a price hike. I think that maybe people just didn't quite expect to see it so soon. Like, maybe it would be a, hey, by the way, Call of Duty is now available on Game Pass. Also, it's $20 a month. Like, maybe that would be the timeline. But it kind of came out of left field. I mean, you see the rumblings. I know you were tagging people on Twitter like, at Xbox, is this true? Because who would have thought that it's like middle of July, random Game Pass increase. So kind of surprising it was this soon, but not a shock to see it in general.
You know what? Sorry, my cat was at the door. You know what's funny is I'm going to bring up another article right here from March 8th, 2023. Microsoft insists Game Pass prices will not increase as a result of the Xbox Activision merger. And if you've seen the thumbnail that I'm using for this video, I took the Liar Liar Jim Carrey phenomenal movie. I put Phil Spencer on it, okay? Because Phil Spencer straight up said this, and that was straight up a lie, right? Like, there is no world in which you convince me that the price isn't going up. You just said it yourself. We're getting Call of Duty into Game Pass, right? Like, there is no world where this price increase isn't a direct result of the merger. And that kind of rubs me the wrong way as someone that, like, we didn't get any say in the merger. You're assuming that this merger, like, is what people wanted. These games are what people wanted. But if you gave me the option to say, hey, keep the price and we won't give you Activision Blizzard games, I would take that option.
I mean, I'm not defending a mega corporation in any day of the week, but at the same time, it's like, I think that Activision Blizzard is one trait of the Xbox setup that we've got right now that's contributing to the increased price of Xbox Game Pass, because it's going to be more expensive to keep new games coming to Game Pass. Development costs are going up across the board for stuff like Indie, Avowed, etc., like we've named off. And then on top of that, you've got Call of Duty and offsetting this, the cost of not having people buy Call of Duty on day one because it's in Game Pass. So I think that if you really want to give Phil an out, like if you're really looking for one, probably partially due to Activision Blizzard, not the sole cause of the price increase itself. But at the same time, there's no getting around the fact that even if you're somebody who continues to pay for Game Pass, like I'm going to with Ultimate, price increases suck. Like nobody likes paying more. So you're never going to get like I understand across the board kind of like, a reaction to this kind of thing. People don't like paying more. It's just natural to have an aversion to that kind of thing.
I think it hits especially hard right now, just with like the state of the economy. Like groceries are going up. You go to the grocery store, I swear to God, every time I go, like, oh, potatoes went up $2. I'm like, well, why? Is the potato market down? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Eh, Listen, from a corporate standpoint, I get it. They're looking to make their money back. They're looking like, wait, we spent $75 billion. Our games aren't selling. Our subscription hasn't really blown up the way we expected. How can we get our money back on these development costs with our current subscriber base? They're really banking on not losing many subscribers with this price increase. And I don't know if that's a good bet to have. I think $20 is a steep pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that there's two ways to think about it, or even three ways to think about it. On one hand, people have subscribed. That credit card, long gone. Like it's just going to keep on rolling and the price increase is going to come and nothing's going to change and they're going to keep paying for it because they don't balance their checkbook or whatever. No one does that. I don't know why I brought that up. No one balances a checkbook in 2024.
My grandma does, but she's 98. So
true. And her Game Pass is going to keep on going. So, people are going to let it continue to roll. On top of that, the people that you lose from the price increase, maybe it offsets and the people that stay are going to cover the cost of the people that are gone, but then you've not really had a net benefit. And then some people might end up just sticking around altogether because of how good the game put out or output continues to be. But TBD on what it comes down to when we really get these changes in effect and see how people react to hopefully a steady stream of games. Because if the service can prove its value, then people are going to be fine with paying $20 a month, depending on what kind of person they are, what kind of player they are. And that's kind of what it comes down to me as somebody who subscribes to Ultimate. It is now more than ever a variety game streaming and subscribing service. It is a variety service. And so if you're just playing one or two games and you just like one specific genre, you will not get the value you need out of buying Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, because it's not that kind of subscription. Like it is something, if you like playing a wide variety, you will be able to enjoy stuff that you wouldn't otherwise for the same cost.
You mentioned something there, the value of Game Pass, which Terrible wrote in over in the Discord, just like you can. Firstly, they want to know, are we going to unsubscribe from Xbox Game Pass? But also, do you think Xbox has presented its value proposition case for its ecosystem and Game Pass well? Will these changes make Xbox more profitable, creating a healthy ecosystem? Or is it doom and gloom, Xbox sucks, and everyone's on the way out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Number one, I'm not unsubscribing from Game Pass. And I'll tell you why. And it's something that I said in a video where I was kind of going through the new tiers, sharing my thoughts on stuff. And it's because I've shaped my gaming habits around Game Pass. Like, I think that's where their minds are with this, is that if you're somebody like me that lives and breathes Game Pass, like I said at the beginning of the show, I played Lords of the Fallen, then I went back to Doom Eternal that I got access to through Game Pass, bought the DLC and played more Doom Eternal. Now I'm off of Doom Eternal, I'm going back and I'm playing Dead Island 2. Like, these are all games that I have in Game Pass that I may or may not have played because they're in Game Pass, or if they weren't in Game Pass. But because they are, I'm kind of baking that into my routine. Diablo 4 on PC, I went back and played more of on PC because it's now in PC Game Pass that I have through Ultimate. And so I think that the value is there if you build your gaming habits around the service. And of course, I'll buy stuff, like I just picked up Shadow of the Erd Tree for the fiance. I'll get around to playing Elden Ring as well. It's not in Game Pass. And so there are things that I'll still go buy, but by and large, I'm planning my games out based on what I've got coming into the service. Neon White, top of the list after Dead Island 2, or during Dead Island 2. Like these are things I'm excited to play because they're in Game Pass. And I think for that, $20 a month is still a steal in the same way Netflix is for people that love movies.
Okay. So for you, they have proven the value proposition. I think that's fair to say. I am not, first of all, I'm not unsubscribing at this current moment because I have Game Pass through April 2025. I won a year code a few months ago. So, like, I am set for the foreseeable future. I have talked with my brother about how we want to handle that going forward. I've talked to my friends how they're going to handle it. And most of them are in agreement that they might drop to Game Pass Core and just buy their games, or Game Pass Standard is another option, which $15 a month, if that's the original price of Game Pass Ultimate. But essentially, this tier is what I like to call the PS Plus Extra tier, where you get their back catalog, you just don't get the day one games into the catalog, which, as someone that has PS Plus Premium only because I was grandfathered in at $80, I still think like $15 is a fine price for that. But the fact that 2 years ago, that's what we were paying for the tier that got day one games kind of rubs you the wrong way. Like, when you just look at it that way, I think it not very good optics, but I can see that tier being more attractive to people, especially if they aren't like, well, I don't play every Xbox first party day one. I don't play Forza. I don't play whatever. I'm okay with waiting, or I'm okay with buying it. So those are my options right now. Maybe Game Pass Ultimate, like I'll use reward points for, see how many I can gather up. Like there are things I'm going through in my mind. I'm not entirely like Ultimate is dead to me, but $20 a month, unless I can subsidize that somehow, or well, help my brother subsidize that somehow, that is a big ask, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it ultimately depends on your personal gaming habits. Like I was going through my phone, I went for a walk right before this podcast, and out of curiosity and preparation, I was like, how many games have I really played on Game Pass this year?
Mm-hmm.
And even in the last month, you're like, still Wakes the Deep. Like I said, Lords of the Fallen, you've got Diablo 4 on PC. I mean, right there, Diablo 4 on PC is $60 if you're not buying it on sale. Lords of the Fallen was $40 at GameStop. Still Wakes the Deep, I think was what, 25, $30, something like that.
Something
40.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, so like right there, let's just say $140 I could have gotten all of those games for, just rounding up or whatever. I mean, 20 divided by 140, the math does itself. Like I've gotten my value out of that because I'm jumping around to a lot of different stuff. But if you're somebody like yourself that has like a very eclectic game flavor that you enjoy playing, and a lot of the stuff you play isn't on Game Pass, then standard probably isn't worth it. And I mean, speaking to standard, I just think this is Microsoft beating around the bush and not wanting to strong arm people into going ultimate or core. Like they had to have something in the middle. And I think that they've
Mm-hmm.
got to give something that kind of lights a fire under people of like, hey, you can keep the $15 a month, but we're taking away like the big thing. This is the big marketing beat that they've really been kind of hitting. It kind of reminds me of the Xbox Live Gold price hike that they immediately pulled the rug on like
Mm-hmm.
24 hours after it was announced because they don't want to look mean. But like, I just don't get why this provides value that deserves recognition in the Game Pass lineup. Like it's no day one releases. That's the thing. That is Xbox. That's Game Pass.
That's fantastic point, because that for me is kind of the big issue with standard is the value in Game Pass for me has the main value, I should say, because there is value in the third party indie AA games come into the service, but the main draw, and I've said it for years now on the show, day one Xbox first party, and the fact that those are now locked behind Ultimate rubs me the wrong way, especially when there are things in the ultimate tier that I would gladly give up to have day one in the standard tier if it's a value thing. They need to make the math work. Like get rid of the cloud, get rid of the PC access, get rid of EA Play, and just have day one standard. Essentially make it the console version you're sunsetting, but with online play. I don't understand why that isn't being considered. And the only thing that goes into my mind is Xbox is kind of telling us that day one isn't sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something you can kind of glean from this. And 2 points that I'll make. Number one, with the Game Pass, or I should say, the Xbox Cloud Gaming integration into Game Pass. Reading through this, I think this makes it more clear than ever that Xbox Cloud Gaming outside of Game Pass dies immediately because nobody is subscribing independently for
Mm-hmm.
Xbox Cloud Gaming. I think even with the Xbox Fire TV Stick integration that was announced last week, how many people are you realistically converting over into a cloud gaming subscription if it stood on its own for $10 a month? Let's just say that. I just don't know if you're turning the same numbers in terms of revenue as you are by keeping it in Game Pass Ultimate. So I think if you take it out, that almost like negates the growth of that service in a lot of ways and kind of takes away, I would say, the majority. I mean, right now, obviously, the entirety of the user base because you have to subscribe to Ultimate, and people just wouldn't go out of their way to find that. I think I just don't think that's something that people are really hunting out right now.
Yeah, obviously we talked about the Fire Stick, and I still think that is a big deal. I think it's great that Xbox Game Pass has expanded to those different areas, but now you're looking at the price of the Fire Stick, the price of the controller, $20 a month to just use cloud, where I know there's been rumors of a cloud only tier, maybe supported with ads or something. Like, why aren't there more options? And I'm not saying there should be 1,000 tiers, but why isn't there a customize your own tier? Like, that is what I've been asking for. I think that would make way more sense and kind of appease a lot of the disgruntled voices I've heard in the community if people could just pick and choose the features they want in their Game Pass subscription.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do that, you're going to end up with a smaller set of selections that people get what they want out of it, which is effectively Game Pass Ultimate without the cloud gaming. I think a lot of the time, I think if anybody's dropping anything, it's the PC people dropping console and the console people dropping PC. Like that would save you a couple of bucks if you're really parsing it out like that. But I think the cloud gaming only subscription model, like the hypothetical ad supported thing, I mean, looking at the landscape, you've got Google Stadia, which, RIP, like it's out,
Mhm.
we don't have that anymore. You've got GeForce Now, which I don't know the stats on. And then you've got Amazon Luna, which no one really
No one
talks
talks about.
about. Like it's just floating around out there. And we talk about the potential of cloud gaming because there's potential there and the technology is really coming together and the internet infrastructure is continuing to improve and like the potential is certainly there, but you can lead a horse to water but you can't make him drink. Are people
Mhm.
really going to be using this in a significant way in the next 5 years? I don't know. I think that if anything, we're just going to become bigger PC players at this rate.
So just looking at the chart, I have a question for Sam Heaney I want to get in here. But looking at the chart, something that immediately sticks out to me is PC Game Pass, 11.99 a month.
Mm.
They get day one releases. You pay $4 or $3 more a month on console, and you don't get day one releases. That doesn't sit right to me. That very much feels like, hey, console players, you're going to pay more and get less because PC has free online and they still get your day one release. Like, does Xbox want you to go to PC? Because it's very much looking like that.
I mean, this is the value the Game Pass is bringing right now, and I should say the best value the Game Pass is bringing right now because PC Game Pass, I think right now they're trying everything they can to not only have Windows as the operating system if you're gaming on PC, but beyond that to get people invested in Xbox through Windows, and you've got to give those people like an absurd value proposition. It's almost like how Epic Game Store gives away games every week. Like you've got to say, hey, you get free day one games through Game Pass for PC for $12 a month because people like Steam. People like having their
Mhm.
library there. I mean, even with the Epic Game Store, like they're floundering trying to get people to stick around and use stuff and not just come and get the free games, even though like over the last 2 weeks, everybody's talking about the Steam Summer Sale. Nobody's talking about Epic Game Store. Everybody's like Steam Summer Sale. That is PC. And so I think that Xbox has got to make an absurdly good value proposition to have that foothold because otherwise people are just going to keep buying their games on PC on Steam because that's where they've been accustomed to buying them. And I think it's hard to kind of win over that market share.
No, the completely fair points. I want to get some people in the chat here. Ghostly Guys writes in, they're taking away the initial promise of Game Pass. Wow, how nice of them. And I can pay the same amount. Uh, TJI in the chat. As of now, cloud gaming is in double digits. Cloud gaming is at minimum 10% of Xbox total hours. PC is a separate market and is growing Game Pass more than console. It makes sense to keep it the same. The problem is console stalled somewhat. So PC is going up. $11.99 is, I think, a $2 increase. But your point there of saying PC is a separate market and is growing Game Pass more, that points to me that the fact that they don't really care about growing consoles. All right. If Game Pass standard is, if they're okay with that being a bad value proposition for their console players, it really does look to me like we don't care if you buy the console anymore, which they've basically said as much this week, right? With no Xbox, no problem, that marketing. I know I'm taking that a little out of context, but it does feel to me like console players are getting shafted.
Yeah, I mean, I think that console players, like, it's not even the console players are getting shafted. It's that if you're not an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate member that has a console or a PC, then you're getting a bad deal or a worse deal comparatively. And I mean, like for me, the $5 difference between standard and Ultimate, that's, that negates itself whenever I look at, like, I don't have to buy Indiana Jones. I don't have to buy Avowed. Okay, whatever. I'm good with that because of how I play. But again, it comes down to what you play and how your gaming habits are. And the big thing for me with this whole Game Pass thing and the outrage over the increase that we've seen online, like, I hate to be the guy, but looking at the trailer for Lifeless Moon, a $12.99 game, the second comment in the YouTube video, is this coming to Game Pass? People are accustomed to having their games in Game Pass on Xbox. Like, whether it was intentional or not, people have become accustomed to thinking, okay, when is this game coming to Game Pass? And by that trait, people are going to be buying less games because there's this anticipation for the potential for people to be buying stuff like Modern Warfare 3, we'll talk about in a minute, potentially coming to Game Pass. How many people last year when the Blizzard deal closed held out for the hope that Modern Warfare 3 would eventually come to Game Pass? And so if that's something that's going to be indicative of how people are reacting in the future, games aren't free. Like, development still has to continue. Xbox people don't buy games. This is us buying our games. I'm paying $20 a month to buy these games and help pay for the development. In the future, our price increase is going to happen again. Very well could. Now, I'm not saying I would stick around for $25 a month. Like, that's a lot of money.
What's your limit? 20 is like.
I think that, like, at the very peak for me, because of how I play, is $25 a month. I think that's peak for PC, for Game Pass Ultimate, for the whole deal. 25 is where I would be like, all right, I'm out, because at that point you're getting up to where you can buy two games, or you're getting a little bit ridiculous for $25 a month. But for 20, I still see the value, and you've got to pay for these games. You've got to make it happen. And if this is what it takes to help keep developers in jobs and to keep the good games coming, like, I want another Halo. I've spent thousands of hours playing Halo over the course of the past 5 years. If me paying $20 a month is paying for 343 to keep the lights on, then so be it, because I've gotten my value out of that.
Well, fair. I want to bring in a Ghostly March question, who wrote in, if Black Ops 6 doesn't lead to an increase in Game Pass Ultimate subscribers that they want, do you think it's time to throw in the towel and admit Game Pass has failed? Do you think it's too late to untrain Xbox consumers to not buy games? If and when we can finally stream our Xbox digital libraries, is that the final nail in the coffin? I'm not sure about that last point. I'm not getting that. I think he's in chat. Maybe he can explain that one. But I think it's kind of too late to untrain Xbox consumers to not buy games. I think that is I would say the majority of the Xbox audience is very accustomed to, I'll just play it on Game Pass. I don't go on the store. I don't spend my money elsewhere, like Game Pass or nothing.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing, and I would love to see like a study comparing PlayStation Plus to Game Pass and how they've messaged things, because I don't feel like there's that same anticipation with the PlayStation library of like, oh, well, it will eventually come. Even if you get good games eventually, there's no one that's like waiting for it to come to PlayStation Plus. And I think even looking at the last showcase, you've got tons of like day one Game Pass, day one Game Pass, day one Game Pass. The conditioning is already done. So I think they're kind of all in here. And I think if anything, these new Game Pass changes are kind of the first indication they're trying to kind of undo some of that conditioning with Game Pass Core, for example, you just get the basics in the standard library. And then if you want to buy stuff, you can go out and buy stuff. And so maybe standard and the bottom core tier are the ones that start to kind of say, hey, if you don't want to pay the premium, you can go back to buying games the same old way. And it's not like that ever went away, but I do think that that consumer mindset's going to be really tough to change. And Black Ops 6, like, it's got to move the needle. And if it doesn't, I think that's a very shocking thing of like, they're going to take a step back and they're really going to have to say, okay, we made a big acquisition and we didn't get as much as we thought we would. Even so, though, won't it still print because we're talking about a Black Ops game on PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, and eventually the next Call of Duty or whatever is going to be on the next Switch? Like, the money is still going to come in, but the Game Pass experiment is definitely going to be under a lot of scrutiny after that big of a purchase.
I see TJI in the chat saying he says untrained, where are these stats coming from that Xbox players don't buy games? Sales have literally been increasing. These are emotions, are not based on facts. So I would push back on that. I do think by and large, Xbox players don't, they'll buy some games, but they don't buy enough to sustain a healthy ecosystem. It's not like PlayStation and Switch, right? Like you put out a game on Xbox and it will have the lowest player base. Like we've seen this constantly with Capcom games, Tekken 8. Like if you see the pie chart, Xbox has barely any of that percentage. So like there are developers who have openly said like they don't come to Xbox because they won't buy the game over there. Like that it's not just emotion, there is facts to back it up. I'm not saying nobody buys games. I buy games on Xbox. I buy a lot of games on Xbox. It's like you buy games on Xbox, that's great, but like by and large, people are not showing up for the games when developers need them to.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm sure there are stats out there, but I'm just Googling right now. Like, there's a thread over on the Xbox Series X Reddit. Not a scientific source, I know. But I mean, looking, one of the title of the thread is why is the Xbox owners don't buy games myth lasted so long, which is the point that's being made. And the top comments are, I mean, I bought like 3 games in total for my Series X. No point when I can get it through Game Pass and wait for it to go on sale. I haven't purchased a single game on my Series X. Like, the stats need to be found out, but I think there's a general consensus. Like, I can speak for me. I know that I have bought less games because they are on Game Pass. Like, that's just a fact. Like, I didn't buy Evil West. I didn't buy Lords of the Fallen. I didn't buy Dead Island 2. I didn't buy, you can name 20 of over the last year. Like, there are things that I'm just not buying that I would have bought otherwise, but I'm paying for through the subscription. Like, that's just the way some people play games.
I'm not gonna. I understand PlayStation does have the market share. You're completely right. It just doesn't, like, that's not how. When you just compare to Xbox, when you compare, like, go look at the Xbox top sellers, and you'll have like 360 games in there. Like people aren't buying the hottest new games on the store. That's all. That's the point I'm trying to make. Ghost Guides did clarify, if I can stream my Xbox library, why wouldn't I just move to a different console and just keep the ability to stream my old games? Why would I keep investing in a seemingly dead or dying ecosystem? Okay, I get that question now. So the point is, I'll keep my games, get rid of the console. I still have them on my account that I can stream anywhere, including my PlayStation, my PC, yada yada yada.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes back to what we've been saying for the past couple of weeks of whether it's through Game Pass or buying your games or on a PlayStation playing whatever game comes. Xbox does not care where you're playing or what you're playing as long as you're playing their games. And I think that that's still a win for them because you're still an Xbox player. Like, I think that's what it really comes down to in that situation.
Yeah. Sam Heaney did write in, said, how are you expecting Xbox and Microsoft to navigate the play it day one with Game Pass marketing? This phrasing is everywhere, plastered all over the most recent showcase. Their communication, clarity, and marketing have been lackluster across the board, and now they'll have to retroactively change the terminology to fit this new reality.
Yeah, thinking through like Gears of War E-Day and like those big trailers that have day one with Game Pass at some point, I'm sure sprinkled amongst them. I think you covered it really well in one of the Discord conversations we had of play a day one with Game Pass Ultimate. Like, that's now going to be the terminology. And then it gets weird because then you're like, play a day one with Game Pass Ultimate, asterisk, or Game Pass for PC. And it's like, it just starts to get even more into the nitty gritty of like the intricacies of how they've built this entire ecosystem. And it's a mess. I mean, there's no getting around it.
Mhm.
And then, talking about the conditioning conversation that we were having, now when people say play a day one with Game Pass, even if they hear Ultimate, they don't care because it's been kind of like accustomed up until Core launched a couple of months ago that means you're going to be getting the game. And so now they've got to kind of untrain and be like, oh, if it's not Ultimate, I'm not getting it. And that's going to be something that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. Could force some unsubscribes, could also force some upgrades. Could go both ways.
Yeah, I actually don't know if they change the marketing. They might stick with play it day one with Game Pass because they've had Game Pass Core for a while now, and they've still used that marketing even though Core doesn't get day one games. Like when they say Game Pass, they've basically always meant Ultimate. They've just never clarified Ultimate, right?
I think that's such a gross thing, though. Like, legally, yeah, you're not going to win a lawsuit if you go to Microsoft and you're like, but I didn't get a day one with my Game Pass standard. But it still just feels so scummy to be like, play a day one with Game Pass, but this one in particular. Like, that's, oh, God, I hate it so much.
Play it day one with Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass, but not Game Pass Standard. Is a sense like they'll have those little asterisks down in the bottom.
Yeah, it's so bad. It is definitely a mess, but nonetheless, one they're going to have to dig their way out of. So I definitely don't envy the marketing team at this point in time.
No, me either. I get again. I think I tweeted out like we all clowned on PlayStation Plus tiers, and I was like, this is way worse than PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, definitely. I want to call out a comment from Warlander TV in the chat that says at 312 Canadian for a year of Game Pass Ultimate, that's quite a lot of cash for renting and owning nothing after that year. And I think that's a really interesting concept. How do you feel about the fact that like I play through these games, like I put over 50 hours into Lord of the Fallen, I put over a day into Doom Eternal and that kind of thing. You can name whatever game you want. Do you have a problem with like the subscription model, whether it's music or movies or TV or games, leaving you nothing tangible? I know we both like collecting physical things, but Game Pass and digital kind of throw that out the window.
So I've been pretty firm on this where I don't care about owning the game. I care about the experience, but that experience needs to come at a price point that I'm comfortable with, which is why I've canceled a lot of like streaming services are gone. Like I don't have Netflix. I get Hulu very cheap, like a dollar a month or something on some plan my girlfriend has. I get Peacock for $6. Like those are reasonable prices for me to pay per month. When you get anything more than that, like I think Netflix, I dropped it when it was hitting 15 and now it's like 22 or something. Like that is ridiculous for me. So part of the conversation for me, like, do I keep Game Pass Ultimate? Do I go to standard? Do we go even lower to core? It is the fact of like, well, I might end up technically paying more for games, but at least I would own them. And like that that is a benefit to me, but I wouldn't care if Game Pass Ultimate was a price point that I was more comfortable with.
Yeah, I think I would kind of agree with that. I think that for me, the not owning stuff, I've kind of gotten used to it with subscriptions, which is probably a really bad thing to admit because like I like owning things as well. I like having the licenses and the keys and things where at least like if I bought the DLC for Forza Horizon 4, which I did, I got a free copy of the game with it
Nice.
and like something I own. But also I'm kind of right there with you where in 10 years am I going to want to go back and play Lords of the Fallen? Probably not.
I
And I
know.
like and I've played it and I'm done with it. And I can always go back and buy the games that I would want to keep and play for years and years to come. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And at the end of the day, like we've seen Sony do it before. I think Crunchyroll was the example that came up recently of like, even if you own stuff, it can still totally go away and you're never going to see it again if it's all digital. And even physical discs basically do nothing. They are effectively QR codes or keys and they
Mhm.
give you access to the digital thing. And it just becomes a huge, disproportionate, weird mess of libraries and digital access. We're living in a weird world, man. It's strange out here.
Yeah, we have a commenter in the chat whose name I think it's Japanese. I'm not sure, but the Game Pass name is extremely tainted and toxic at this point, which I I don't know if I'd go that far. I do think Game Pass has lost some of its shine with the price increase, with the now confusing tiers, with the getting rid of the day one, which is their main draw. I do certainly think the Game Pass name has been damaged this week.
I think that it's like I saw a comment on Twitter, which I logged onto and logged directly off because I don't need that in my life. I'm going the Joe Moran route, the Mr. Badbit route of like a detox. I like that. But by the way, Joe, congrats on season 2 of Severance coming January of 2025. Really excited to see you back on the big screen. But I saw somebody comment on Twitter and they said Game Pass is the worst thing that's ever happened to gaming, and it's not, in my opinion. Like that's a huge exaggeration, and I think people are really blowing it out of proportion with the whole price change thing and stuff like that. I do think that it's had an undeniable impact on the way we perceive games. Like whenever I would buy a game, like I'm thinking about something like even Ghost Recon Future Soldier that I bought on day one on the Xbox 360 or PS3, one of the two, way back in the day. When you buy a game for 60 or 70 bucks out of pocket, you're invested in spending more time with it. And so I do think that we're more accustomed to just jumping from game to game. If I don't like Dead Island 2 3 hours in, I can dip and have no repercussion in my life except for 3 hours. So I think it's changed the way we think about games. But I mean, also on the flip side, how many indie deals have saved a company because Game Pass came in and gave them a sweet deal? Like, is Vampire Survivors as big as it is on consoles because Game Pass kind of blew it up? What is Pal World like without Xbox Game Pass? Like, there are other examples that show how it's been a lifeline, just as many examples of how it perceivingly or however you want to describe it, has impacted us negatively too.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. There are positives and negatives to the subscription model. I think the industry is just in a very confusing point right now, especially consumers. Like I've been saying this a lot lately, and it's a video idea I have. But like I think live service games are doing irreparable damage to the industry. And I know I say that you play a lot of live service games, my brother play a lot of live service game, but like PlayStation's presentation where they showed a chart and it was like 60% of our players are just on Fortnite and Genshin and Warzone, and then the other 40% are down here broken up in these tiny categories. Like it is crazy to me that like who would want to make a game studio when you know like no one's going to buy this, no one's going to play this? Like what are the chances you fall in that 40% of success? Nobody will get off their lifestyle game to give your game a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that speaking for myself, it's something that I've had to literally break myself out of because I was on the live service grind. I played Halo Infinite for like every week for a year straight. Now I was playing other things as well in there, but that was like my bread and butter. I was getting into it. Now that we're 3.5 years in and I've gotten everything I want to out of the game, I'm kind of like putting it on the back burner. Same with Diablo and Battlefield. Like these things can take up your entire life. And I think it was Daddy Diwali on XEP this week, who I think guest hosted, if I remember correctly, reading off some of the top 10 most popular games through Game Pass. I think he was quoting, but just Xbox in general. And it's like you were saying, it's your Warzone, your Fortnite, your Roblox, your like all of these big live service games. And there are some that are mixed in there as well, like Diablo 4, because it's big on PC Game Pass. But outside of a couple of outliers, it is those big free-to-play games that keep people coming back. I mean, Warframe, Rocket League, all these games are going to continue to be at the top. And that's definitely had a bigger impact, I think, than Game Pass ever would. That's a totally different topic. I mean, that's just it's a weird time over the past 5 years to see how gaming has evolved from like big annual releases to free to play games that have big annual releases that you have to pay for. Like it's a very weird shift we've seen.
Yeah, like I said, that's a whole another topic that we can touch on some other time. But it is like Game Pass, free to play games. It doesn't leave many consumers itching to spend $70 on, especially new IP, which we've talked about before, like the failures of new studios launching new games.
Yeah, and beyond that, if you're a casual player and you see $20 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, why would I do that when Fortnite is literally free? I have 3 hours a week to play games. I'll spend $5 on a Stormtrooper skin or whatever and live my life and play 3,000 hours of Fortnite.
Yeah, the $20 is per skin in Fortnite, from what I've heard.
Well, even if it's 20, even if you don't buy any skins and you just use the default Jonesy skin, whatever, like you can find anything. Like there is literally, the bar is bare minimum, $0. You can pick up an iPhone and find games to play for free and kill your time that you've got and then go to bed, wake up, go to work the next morning. Like that's a lot of people, and they don't have to pay for games like they did in 2005, 2006.
Yep. Yeah. Works for some consumers, but I think it has some issues with for the industry. But
Yeah.
we won't touch on that anymore. Anything else to say before we move on to our next topic?
I would just say Ghostly Guides in the chat isn't the real problem. Again, these studios are spending hundreds of millions for 5 years when they could put out a shorter and cheaper game in 2 to 3 years. I
Yeah.
just don't have the background knowledge of like what it would take to develop a game. And then I think that also it's such a weird thing because the expectation that people have now for an impressive game is a Spider-Man, is a Elden Ring, is
Hmm.
like, put in your giant thing. But on the flip side, we're asking for games that are shorter, more affordable, less costly to develop. And so it's a catch 22 of like, do people know what they really want? Because you might say you want these things and then you actually want an Elden Ring or vice versa. Like, I don't know. And I assume these companies are just kind of like following the trend and they're on this track that's really hard to get off of. I think that you've kind of dug yourself into a hole if you're a game developer.
Again, I think that goes back to the casual versus more enthusiast conversation where I think enthusiast people like in this community listening to podcasts, they understand like at the outrageous budgets these games have. We need shorter, like the layoffs are rampant. Like we need to curb this problem. But the mainstream, the casual gamers, they just see that game looks pretty awesome. Like it's like a blockbuster movies, right? Like if you're not into the movie scene, you're not gonna go see those indie movies that are always winning awards. You're gonna be like, ah, Fast and Furious 11's out. Let's go see that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how it's very much that for games when they see God of War, they see Spider Man.
Yeah. There's definitely an element there. I don't know. I love these philosophical conversations though. We could go all night. I know we've got other topics though.
Yeah. Let's keep it rolling here. Story number 2 is Modern Warfare 3 coming to Game Pass. In what is no doubt an attempt to ease the price hike frustrations. Insider Gaming's reporting Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is set to come to Game Pass this month. This coincides with rumors of other games coming, such as Crash and Sane Trilogy, Spyro Reignited, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater remakes coming, which we discussed last week. Is this enough to make everyone settle down, Sam?
I think that it's like it's going to help the medicine go down, and I figured this would be a topic on this week's show, and I know that I've been following some of Todd Oxtra's tweets over on Threads. That was not a real sentence. These platforms aren't real. What is social media anymore? But Todd Oxtra's been posting some stuff, and I think it's a really interesting observation of Modern Warfare 3 is coming to Game Pass. I'm somebody who didn't buy Modern Warfare 3, or I should say, it's reportedly coming to Game Pass. Let's clarify. I didn't buy it on day one. Didn't buy Modern Warfare 3 at all. We'll definitely go back and play this campaign that people have been complaining about for 8 months. And then I'll play some of the multiplayer and check it out and see what's going on there. So, like, I might be in the minority there, but how many people have already bought this and it's not really a value add? Kind of in the same way I'd already bought Diablo 4 on console, didn't really need it in another form in Game Pass. In the back catalog, kind of the same thing. Like, I already own Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, finish those bad boys. Crash Team Racing, Crash Nitro, all of that stuff, like done. And then the back catalog of like old Call of Duty games. That's great. I love playing Modern Warfare 3 from 2011, but it's 13 years later. So like, do I really need it again? But it's just that nostalgia. Like I love having these games in an accessible way, and it'll definitely make this feel a little bit more of a value. But will people actually see it and be like, oh yeah, heck yeah, I'm ready to go? I don't know.
Yeah, this is one of my issues again. If we're tying it into the last conversation, where people are like, "Oh, they're bringing the back catalog of ABK to Game Pass," and I'm like, "Okay, but how much money are they actually making on that back catalog? Like, how
Mm.
many people are still buying Crash Insane Trilogy, Spyro Reignited, Tony Hawk? Like, I can't imagine, especially on the Xbox platform, that you are making millions of dollars on those game sales to maybe Call of Duty Zero Story, but those games in particular. So, like putting them into Game Pass, I don't really see you as losing money on game sales for that. So, like for me, it's kind of a net neutral thing there for them in terms of value. I'm not really interested in Modern Warfare 3. Cool if other people are. I just I don't know, man. It comes across as like it's obviously not official. This is just rumors, but it does come across as like we're sorry. Here's a little game for you.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, like Modern Warfare 3 is definitely going to do it for some people that might be in my shoes where they've been wanting a first person shooter. But I mean, thinking about that back catalog, every time there's a big sale for the Xbox 360, the old Call of Duty games are always at the top of the pile. Your Black Ops, your Modern Warfare 2, your Black Ops 2, those are the ones that people always go back to. But for me, like, yes, I'm nostalgic for those games. I grew up with them. I would love to play them again. That is all of one weekend. Like, I'm not going to go back and do multiple prestige grinds in Modern Warfare 2 in the year of our Lord 2024. Like, it's just not happening. I'm not going to do it. And it's cool to have those again accessible. I've also got them on the shelf and they're backwards compatible on my Xbox Series X now. Like, I own these games. And so if anything, it just makes it easier to go and download and have right there. But I'll just be interested to see how deep the integration goes. Like, is this going to be the Bethesda moment of like you pull the lever and everything is there? Or is it going to be kind of a trickle effect of like we got Diablo 4 in March, we now get Modern Warfare 3 in July. What do we get coming up in when is Black Ops 6 coming in October, I think?
October. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, is it an every 3 months kind of March, April, May? So like for 3 to 4 months we get a drop. I'm just trying to like figure out what their cadence is here because it's feeling weird.
Yeah, I think they need to start getting some of these into the service for sure. And then we have these rumors of all those games coming. So, like, if there was ever a time to start throwing them in to justify what you've done this week, to try to justify it for some consumers, I think now is the time. Like, we need that Game Pass announcement next. Is the next, yeah, next week we'll get the Game Pass announcement for the second half of the month. So, like, have a Call of Duty in there, maybe have another Spyro Crash or whatever, but like August should also have some of those in there. Like, it's time to start showing up.
Yeah. I mean, you know what they need. Like, they've announced these price increases across the board. Crash Team Rumble. Like, that's the only one. That's the only one you
Only
need.
one that can save it.
I mean, that's what you say. Hey, it's going to be $20 a month right now, but you can have a nasty dingo dial in Crash Team Rumble.
Dingo dial. That's right.
Like, it's time.
Nasty.
It's time to get in there, and you got to take down Kevin's nasty dingo dial. And $20 a month is what you got to pay to do it. And I feel like that's a worthy cause. That's worth it.
Don't tell them that you can buy the game for basically that price, but like, yeah, $20 a month to keep playing.
Yeah, it's really what they need to call it is Crash Team Rumble Ultimate at that point, and just add another tier to the subscription.
Director's cut.
I don't like the idea of a director's cut for a nasty dingo dial. Don't like that. I'm not a big fan of that. Let's move. We got another topic. I got to get out of here.
Okay, story number 3. Did Hellblade 2 flop? Hellblade 2 is undoubtedly the highest profile release of Xbox so far this year, and we finally have a clearer picture on how it performed. According to Circana analyst Matt Piscatella, Hellblade 2 was 37th overall in terms of full dollar sales for May 2024 and 21st overall on Xbox Series consoles. As this is a first-party title, it did launch into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, where it ranked 12th on Xbox in terms of monthly active users. Sam, do these statistics indicate Hellblade 2 was not a success?
I mean, man, like, I'm always trying to be positive. Like, I am the positive guy. I love trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel. I think you can't look at this and be like, yeah, that was a banger. Like, these numbers just aren't showing that. And I think it really comes down to, like, you can have somebody that is a totally unknown artist that's a dude on the street who's painting these beautiful, like, world-renowned murals on the side of a building that no one ever even recognizes or realizes are as good as they are. You can have a violinist that's playing in a subway tunnel that's just as good as anybody that's up on a stage, and there's still going to be a dude playing in a subway tunnel. Like, Hellblade 2 is definitely not like, I'm not trying to say that it's bad or anything, because it's a great game. We've talked about how good it looks, the narrative, the meaning, like, it's a really good game. But if it's not a game that's speaking to people, even if it's 12th on Xbox for monthly active users and it's in Game Pass, like, you've given it to every Game Pass user to try out. I mean, I don't think you can look at this and be like, yeah, that was the success that Xbox had probably hoped that it would be. And I know there's a conversation to be had about, like, the marketing and how much they really tried to push it, because I think that's definitely an element too. But I also think it just speaks to the type of game that it is. It's certainly for the minority of people, I think.
I do think that marketing plays a factor here for sure. They didn't market this game well at all. I didn't see one TV ad spot for it. I didn't see YouTube ad spots for it. I saw Twitter ad spots. I saw some Reddit ad spots, but like all their marketing that I saw was like, hey, we're doing a psychology presentation at Oxford. We're
Yeah.
putting Hellblade 2 up on the cliffs in Norway, or so, like all this weird stuff that unless you are following the game already and you're like, oh, that's neat. Like you probably didn't know about Hellblade 2. Like if I go to work and there's a subsection of people at work that play games, and like last I talked to them, they named the big games. All right, they're like talking about Persona, they're talking about Final Fantasy. If I want to, like, you guys play Hellblade 2, they're probably like, what's that? All right, that's because I just don't think Xbox did a very good job of getting this game out there. And whether that's because they didn't believe in it enough, or they're just like, it's on Game Pass, well, it'll do what it do. I don't know. But when I look at this and I see 37th overall in terms of full dollar sales, where I don't think May was a particularly stacked month in terms of game releases. Like if this was April, I could understand you had things like Stellar Blade come out, which I expected like number one, but I don't think Hellblade 2 had much stiff competition in terms of big AAA releases to go against. 21 on Xbox Series overall tells me people didn't buy it on the console, but that doesn't surprise me. And I get upset when people talk about sales for Xbox Game Pass games first party, because you can't expect people to buy first party games if they're also included in your subscription service. I have said that for weeks. I get frustrated when people try to use that as a gotcha. Xbox is failing. Like, well, it's in the subscription service. Like, you either want people to subscribe or you want people to buy the game. You can't have it both ways. Then I go to Game Pass and I see 12. And I'm like, you know what? 12th overall, not that bad for a niche 6-hour game. Didn't have much marketing. But then the non Hellblade fanboy in me goes, if this was any other big game for Xbox, I'd be like, 12th is pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I mean that's like a lot. And my question would be like if it's ranked on 12th for monthly active users, how many people logged in and played more than 30 minutes of Hellblade 2? Like that's the number that I want to see, because I think that the issue that Xbox ran into with this when it comes to marketing is like, how do you market a game like Hellblade? Because if you build it up to be this like visually stunning, you pull in 5 of the action shots from the game of like giants that are getting hit with spears and like these big sequences, like those are the peak moments in the game, but it doesn't get beyond that. I mean, it really is borderline like a walking simulator the majority of the time. And again, like we talked about last week, I'm not meant to be derogatory when I say that, but that's just the type of game that it is. And I like the combat. I enjoyed the combat, but you're going to have people comparing this directly to other games that look similar to it. And God of War keeps coming up, and it's not meant to be like God of War, but like that's what the general conversation would have been. And I think if you make this something where you've got a TV show, you've got a live action spot on the YouTube channel, you've got the giant social media takeover for weeks at a time, you build it up into being something that's bigger than it is. But even then, if you do something smaller than that, you're belittling it because it is an impressive game. So it's like, how do you balance that and try to make it something like you can't go to people and be like, this is a very artistic focused game. It's not really action. You might hate it if you don't like action. Like you can't market that. It's impossible.
Might hate our game. Okay. Like we're just like, $50. You might have a miserable time, but
I mean, it's just like you're in a catch-22 either way, because it's not a bad game, but it's just not a game for everybody. And I mean, like it's a game that I enjoyed, but that's because I went in with like this.
You knew what it was.
Yeah, I went in with a recognition that it was not the kind of game that was going to be like slinging swords back and forth, really getting into like the combat of it. It wasn't going to be like a rhythmic battle like Doom Eternal. It was like a impactful story-based mental health game. I mean, that's kind of what it really is. And I think a lot of people wouldn't want that if you tried to like put that in an ad somewhere.
Yeah, and I've seen some say like, well, there's no physical. And I'm like, Xbox physical copies don't sell that much anyway. So like, I don't know how much that would hurt the game. I just pulled up some things that the Steam all-time peak was like 3,900. Its current is sitting around 69 players.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So not great in terms of
3,900. It peaked at 3,900.
I believe that's what it was last I looked. And then I pulled up True Achievements, which says 90% of Hellblade 2 players haven't finished the game, but then also 52% didn't even make it past the first boss, which you encounter about after 30 minutes of the game. So
that, yes, like all-time peak right now 2 months ago is 3,982 on Steam, which is just, that is not great whatsoever. There are 41 people playing it right now. Those are the real ones. But those are the real ones. Like, yeah, I mean, I just can't look at this. I just hope the best for Ninja Theory, because I mean, you're coming off of like Hellblade 1 was this like kind of like, I don't even want to call it an indie darling, but let's just call it what it is. Like, it was a small game that stood out, kind of blew up. And then you have Bleeding Edge, which like,
RIP.
Yeah, and then you keep on going, and you've got Hellblade 2 now. Which, have they done anything else besides those three recently that I'm missing?
No, those are the most recent three. Before that, they did Odyssey they did Devil May Cry, and which people.
Was that the reboot one? Like,
that was the other Dante that like they made. They actively said at, I think, what's that games developer thing that happens?
GDC.
Yeah, GDC. They actively made fun of Devil May Cry, like the original ones, and then they made theirs, and they made fun of it in the game. So yeah, that went over well. And then before that was Odyssey, and then Heavenly Sword. So.
Yeah, so I mean, like, looking at the most recent three, you've got Hellblade, Bleeding Edge, and Hellblade 2. Like, I really hope that, obviously their next game has already been greenlit. They've discussed that. They're already working on something else. But I really hope that this isn't another situation that's similar to what we saw with Ghostwire Tokyo and Hi-Fi Rush with Tango Gameworks, where like I don't think that Ninja Theory is going to be shuttered, which was the conversation pre-Hellblade 2. But now that the numbers are out, like, is Xbox looking at this saying, okay, this was in development for a long time, and we made like $4. Like, what are the actual metrics here we're talking about?
Yeah, they haven't announced anything. I know it took Hellblade 1 over a year to hit a million, or maybe a few. No, it was a year to hit 1 million. And then when it came to Game Pass, I think it got to 6 to 7 million players. But that, again, how many of them actually played the game through to completion? So the fact that like they haven't announced anything for Hellblade 2 tells me like it hasn't sold very well, and player engagement probably isn't that high. Like, I don't even know if it hit 1 million players on Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah. So now my follow-up question for this is, if you're in the driver's seat, you're Phil Spencer or you're Ninja Theory or whatever, what's your next move here? Like, are you expediting getting it on PlayStation? Is that the next
I would get
move?
it on PlayStation ASAP. I know people might not want to hear that, but this is a game that should be on PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that this is the perfect example of, hey, Game Pass has now, and Xbox players have gotten their like little, here's your value for being in the Xbox ecosystem. By the way, we need money. So here, PlayStation players, here's the sequel to the game that you played in 2015 or 2016 that you really enjoyed. Come over here and play it for $50 and then see what it does. I think that's the next logical step.
Yeah, more like, hey, we tried to give you this game. No one really played it over here, so like let's it was part of a benefit that none of you seem to like. So we're gonna go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm trying to like throw Xbox under the bus, but like, you're reading the tea leaves here. Like, the numbers don't lie. And when you're looking at this, I mean, if it was not something that did success in numbers here, or got success in numbers here, didn't get success in numbers on Steam, throw it on PlayStation, get that port out there, and try to make it happen.
And then give Switch to a cloud gaming version.
Oh yeah, I've heard people love those cloud gaming versions.
Yeah,
I've heard they just play so well.
I've heard that as well. Yeah, definitely isn't broken.
Yeah, no, Joey Ferris over at Game Explain loves the cloud gaming versions. I remember him talking
Kingdom
about those
Hearts,
so much.
Control.
Yeah, Control is the big one. Yeah,
they love flawless.
Huge fans.
Well, hopefully Hellblade 2 can recover, whether that's on PlayStation or suddenly pop off on Xbox. But I still love it, and that's what matters.
Absolutely.
Ghostly Guides, the Devil May Cry game is really good. I don't care what people say.
You keep fighting that fight.
Fair. Our last story for the day, which I didn't actually make a ticker for, but Xbox is reportedly pulling out of Europe and other marketing areas just for their console marketing. All right. I want to make this very clear. They're not taking away consoles. They're not saying, hey, screw you guys, we're done here. So this is according to Tom Warren at The Verge.
They're making a pile in front of Big Ben. Go drop your Xbox off right now. They are
Xbox
out.
trade-in program. Hand them in.
Yeah,
Right?
Jess Corden away in handcuffs this morning just because they're getting out of Europe. Okay.
Microsoft's reportedly stopping advertisement for Xbox Series X and S consoles in some regions. Tom Warren writes in the Verge newsletter that a source has claimed Microsoft will halt console marketing in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. They're going to instead shift their marketing towards Xbox Game Pass, Xbox controllers, cloud gaming, and the PC gaming market.
It's a really interesting move. I mean, I know we were talking about this back and forth whenever I was commuting home from work today, but you said that they generally don't do like a ton of console marketing. Is that correct? What do you know, Kev?
Well, so I have heard from sources on Reddit, and I've also talked to Sam Heaney, who is in the UK. He
Ah,
has never once seen an Xbox ad, he told me.
interesting.
So it doesn't seem like there's much marketing going on already in these regions.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I think this is another really big example of like how Xbox has been trying to like chase this global domination for the past couple of years of we want more Japanese studios, international studios. We want kind of a foothold in every region to be growing our footprint there, which sounds great on paper, but you can't go to another, location. You can't try to expand when you don't have everything controlled at home. Like I think that's kind of the deal. And right now there's so much room for growth in the Western market that we're in, that why would you continue to try and expand in other places when you haven't really even gotten like the strongest foothold possible here in the United States or in North America in general. And so I think that if anything, this is them trying to kind of like consolidate and focus on the regions that they know that they can have the most impact in. And I think that North America is kind of the target market for Xbox right now to continue competing against PlayStation. And then they'll continue to try and seed stuff in other regions for sure. Like they'll continue to try and nurture those relationships they're building with gamers around the world. But I think it's just them trying to refocus and get really good at one specific set of things instead of trying to do everything everywhere kind of okay.
I believe it was Emperor Donald Trump that said, we got to fix things here at home first before we worry about anyone else. All right. That's
Wrong.
Yeah, wrong. That's just listen. I'm being a little messy there, but no, it does seem like Xbox is very much taking the approach of let's focus on the United States market. Let's win back our previously most winnable region before we worry about expanding, because like the consoles over there aren't selling anyway. Maybe is that due to marketing or is it just due to lack of interest? I don't know. It sounds like a vicious cycle, but they're again shifting to Game Pass, PC, like letting everyone know like you don't need a console. And it kind of worries me as someone that likes consoles, and we've had that conversation before. Obviously there's a next gen console coming. I'm not sure if they're going to ever leave the console market. They'll probably always have some sort of option. But in the regions where it doesn't make sense to manufacture, distribute, have those on the stores sitting there, that's money down the drain if it's just sitting in stores in those regions, right? So, like, cut your costs over there. That's just a business move.
Yeah, I think that the closer we get to the next generation and the more powerful PCs get, like the more the PC gaming becomes more and more appealing because you don't have to worry about this kind of conversation. Like if you're a fan of PlayStation games, they will come eventually. The majority of them are going to be coming more and more. The live service ones are coming day one. If you're Xbox, Game Pass has a $12 tier that gives you more than the two of the other tiers that are out there, and you can get that on PC. And so the more that I look at that kind of thing, the more that I'm really like eyeballing PC. And so on an international scale, I think it makes a ton of sense to focus again on doing one set of things in one specific region really, really well. And then once you've kind of refined that process, then you expand, then you replicate. And I think that right now they've been trying to just scale up too fast, even though they're 20 plus years in. Like they're still young in the game in the grand scheme of things. Like they're still kind of the new kid on the block. And this generation has definitely not changed that mantra in a lot of ways. In some ways it has, but they're not by any means killing it right now, in a lot of ways. Like in some ways they are, but in some ways they aren't.
Oh, they're killing it. All right. Killing the brand. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Tim Dog,
god.
come back. No, I'm joking.
I'm stay. No, no, we're good. We're good, bud. Thank you.
Remember that? Remember the good times Twitter was having during that whole thing?
That was so hilarious. Whenever everybody's like, "Has anybody checked on Tim Dog? Is Tim
Yeah,
Dog okay?"
every podcast I listen to is he okay?
It's crazy,
I don't know
man.
if he's okay. I don't know if he's okay, but no, yeah, I think this is a standard marketing procedure, looking where they can cut costs. You might not like it, but it's what they do. Business moves to save money. So we'll see if they go harder in the U.S. They or not. But I think for what their marketing strategy seems to be, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, hear me out though. Like if they had really stuck their foothold in Japan, they could have done like a giant Doom the Dark Ages Gundam, and it would have been so sick. Like really go all in on that new mech thing they've got, and just really throw that in for Japan. Oh god, I would love to see that.
Is Doom? Is Doom one of the games that they don't allow in Japan? Aren't there's certain games, I don't know if it's Japan, Australia for sure definitely is like all uppity about certain games with violence.
Really,
They don't let in certain countries. Japan, they banned Fallout 3 barely. Crash Bandicoot 2, what? The
Germany
Callisto
censored Doom.
Protocol is banned in Japan.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I remember that one. But well, I think that was over. Who was it that like helped support that? It was some kind of Chinese developer.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I
All right.
remember. I remember whoever published that was like weird, and they got some issues with the government.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was it NetEase or was it one of those other ones?
It
Nexon?
was PUBG Corp actually.
PUBG Core. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam,
Oh,
that is
Crafton. That was it. Crafton.
crafting. Yeah. That's all we have for this week's show, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out in the chat. It's been a lively discussion. Like seeing everyone's viewpoints on Game Pass, on everything going on. But Sam, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you until next
Yeah.
week?
Yeah, you can find me on Threads, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram at JamPackSam. Been having a lot of fun conversations on Threads, talking about Game Pass hikes and just general stuff, posting videos, having a good time, and just keeping things light. You know, in these troubling times, we've got to keep each other happy and enjoying the hobby. So I'm excited to keep that going. And of course, as always, every Thursday, occasionally Wednesday, here with you, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone can find me at the Muffin Mon on all social media. That's a 1 and 7 I, O and 7A. Follow us at Save Game Media to stay up to date with all of our latest content. Until next week, we'll see you.